thank you very much, sir, for giving us the opportunity to pick your brain and ask you some questions. So, we have been at NIFOR here for the past 2 weeks on the training and research to know more. And today is marking the highlight and the climax of our visits to NIFOR. So we will want to ask you some questions, and you can use this opportunity to educate Nigerians on some of the roles NIFOR has been playing. First, we want you to kindly introduce yourself and tell us a brief history about NIFOR and their role in the Nigerian agricultural sector.
Yes, thank you for coming to NIFOR. Thank you for taking the time to visit us in this our enclave. We are far from town, and not many people will even know that we are inside this hideout here, and that is because we require this kind of environment to do research. Mhm. I'm sure since you came here, you have not seen people dancing to trendy songs and music. Everybody is in a serious mode, doing what they should be doing. My name is Dr. Isona. I'm the Executive Director of the Nigerian Institute for Palm Research. The Nigerian Institute for Palm Research is a child of necessity. A child of necessity in the sense that during and immediately after the slave trade, palm oil and palm kernels were one of the agricultural produce that the colonial government was interested in. And that was because they needed a lot of oils and fats, for their household and industrial developments. And if you know the peculiarity of the palm oil compared to the oils in their country, the oil you find mainly in Europe and America are unsaturated oils. Those are oils that are liquid, they are fluidy, there's no solid component. So things like the soybean oil, rapeseed oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, they are all very liquid oils. Now, when you are doing food frying, those liquid oils, because of their rich unsaturation, they easily undergo what we call oxidation. Oxidation is when an oxygen is introduced into an unsaturated bond. So the oil will degrade further from there, either through polymerization or through hydrolysis to now form components that we call aldehydes and ketones. So those ketones are what is responsible for that rancid aroma that you perceive in oil that is going back. When you say this oil is rancid, it's those carbonates that you are perceiving. So essentially we say that those liquid oils are not stable. They are not stable. There was a time when somebody was complaining about how the oil he was using for food frying became sticky and plastic and black, and just concluded that people should be careful. No, people are packaging plastic oil. No, the thing is very poisonous. So it wasn't that. It's the polymerization of the unsaturated fatty acids that gave those sticky substances. And that happens when you abuse your oil. The way we do food frying here is not the way they do it overseas. They use oil for food frying and they discard before there's a color change. Here, we will use that oil until the color becomes black. And in the process, all sorts of compounds, a lot of which are carcinogenic, get formed. Especially when you take that oil, you fry things like fish, the oil will further extract highly unsaturated fats from the fish, and then increase the instability, oxidative instability of the oil. You know, so that oil have very limited application, especially during the time. I don't know whether you could grew up to meet blue band.
Yes.
You know, in my time we were eating blue band in secondary school. You know, hardly see it around these days. You know, all those margarines were being produced overseas using hydrogenated soya bean oil, because before you can get your oil to maintain that kind of solid state, you have to decrease the unsaturation by pumping in hydrogen in order to remove the unsaturation, so that the thing can start having saturated fatty acid. So in the process, that oil will be solid at room temperature. You know that soya bean oil is not solid at room temperature, it's liquid.
Yes.
Just like you have our groundnut oil. It's liquid at room temperature. So for you to use the oil for blue band, you have to make it saturated. So in palm oil, God gave us a tropical oil that is both saturated and unsaturated. So if you want to undertake applications that require unsaturated oil, you can use palm oil by fractionating it and removing that liquid top. If you want to produce products that require saturated fats, you will fractionate it. That semi-solid lower layer will fulfill that portion. If you want oil with some kind of unique characteristics that when you use it to make products and then they enter your mouth, they start melting gradually and giving you the fulfillment of enjoyment, go for cocoa butter, go for shea fat. It will give you that characteristics that you find in chocolate products. So God loaded our tropical environment with very unique fats. And these were the commodities of trade as at that time, as they still are today. Shea butter, for instance, is one of our shea tree, one of our mandate crops. Shea butter is a product of shea tree. It's still an export product till date because you can't grow it elsewhere apart from Africa. You know, so same with the palm oil. It's a tropical oil, and Nigeria is the center of diversity of the oil palm. It's just like when you are looking for a black man, you come to Africa.
Yeah.
When you are looking for oil palm, come to Nigeria. Because in this place that you see the blue, the black, the green, the white, all sorts of diversity of the oil palm, you find them in Nigeria, especially in the southeast. So this was the major interest of the colonial masters, that they now started studying the oil palm around Africa and South America, including the Asian countries. So in the Nigerian context, because the things were in the bush, our oil palm, mainly found in the bush, that we call white grove, we didn't see any need of setting up plantations. Because people on market days, the day before market days, they still do it. The day before market days, you just walk into the bush, see a palm tree, you climb it, harvest it, come to the house, manually process your palm oil, take it to the market, sell it, buy your food, and come home and eat. So when somebody is telling you, okay, come and market this area, come and do night by night spacing, you'll be looking at that person. Where are you coming from? Why are you asking me to do night by night spacing for something I can really get from my backyard? Before I walk between my compound and my father's compound and my grandfather's compound, I have enough oil palm, and in places like Akwa Ibom where they inherit palm trees, I don't need to go far, because right from my compound alone, I can harvest up to 20 trees and take the products to the market. So I'm either selling palm fruits or I'm selling the oil. And in some cases, if I process palm oil, I can recover my palm nuts. You know, so this high interest is what made the British government to now say, let us provide some technical support to the development of this crop. Because already palm oil was not only now coming out of Nigeria into the international market, palm oil was coming out of British Congo. Palm oil was coming out from the West Indies. You know, the Netherlands colonized areas in Southeast Asia. You know, so and the ones that were coming out of the Southeast Asia was more rapid than the ones from Africa. The reason is that in Southeast Asia, they didn't have any white growth. So they have to start developing plantation from the beginning. Like somebody that is desperate, when they recognize that this particular crop has very strong potential in our country. Not like Thailand did to cassava. You know, we are the highest producer of cassava in the world today. You know, but we are very, very low in our presence at the international market for cassava. You know, and that is because you harvest cassava, you just throw it away. The next year you go to the same farm and harvest something that you didn't plant. You know, in so many other places, you have to systematically plant it to have those results. You know, so that was what led to the creation of NIFOR. When the British colonial government now found that, you know, if they don't keep up, production from Southeast Asia, you know, will overtake that of Africa. And there was a kind of competition among the different governments. You know, European governments, American governments, British governments, you know, they shared Africa among themselves.
Yes.
So there was competition amongst them. You know, so by 1920, between 1917 and 1920, you know, Malaysia already cultivated about 400 hectares of oil palm. Man-made plantation. Planted with scientifically engineered planting materials. When Nigeria was still very deep in the wild, exploiting what God gave us naturally. You know, because the conferences that led to the formation of NIFOR started around 1927. You know, and ramped up to the creation of the oil palm research station in 1939. You know, then in the 50s, they now extended the research activities of OPRS to Ghana and Sierra Leone. And then they now called it West Africa Research Organization. Wow. You know, in 1961 precisely, when a lot of the member states have gained independence, that is why they now called the Nigerian component Nigerian Institute for Oil Palm Research. And we also now have Ghana Institute for Oil Palm Research. And then we have the four others. So since then, NIFOR as an institute has been living up to its billing. Because apart from the oil palm, other palms were now added to our portfolio. The coconut palm, the raffia palm, the date palm, and then 2005, they added shea tree. Because they were all oil seed crops, except this, that is, you know, there's a different kind of fruits. So, since inception, the research component of the industry has been a major focus of the industry and was supported at the beginning by taxes collected by the Nigerian Palm Producers Board. Because in those days, when they are going to sell palm oil, the producers will produce the oil. Then you now have the government now created a marketing board to interface between the producers and the exporters. The exporters were mainly foreigners. So when the producers transfer their produce to the marketing boards are to now give to the exporters. You know, so there's usually a difference between what the marketing board paid the producers and what they sell. You know, so on that difference, they were given a particular percentage for research. That is how our initial work was funded and generously funded. I tell you, the work that was done then cannot be replicated now. The work that was done then cannot be replicated now. If Nigeria loses the deposit of materials in NIFOR, then they would have lost it completely. Because we warehouse virtually all the genetic material anywhere in the world. I'm telling you, anywhere in the world. In Ghana, it was materials from Nigeria that they used in establishing experiments in Ghana. So if you look at materials of people that came to Ghana to collect, to hybridize with things they collected from Congo, you still see the Nigerian line. And that's why I told you when you came before, anybody that is eating palm oil in the world has consumed a Nigerian product. Because the Nigerian gene is associated with every palm that is planted anywhere in the world. So if you take their trees, for instance, there's only we call segregation. You know, when you produce a hybrid that we call F1, you know, it means that you take a pure parent, you cross the two of them, they will give you a generation, maybe you call it first generation. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, that hybrid, if you take it and then you go and plant it, it will segregate. The parents will reappear. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like what happened in even human beings. You know, when two parents come together, they give birth to a child. You know, and that child grows up, and then, you know, give birth to children. You start seeing the parents amongst the children. You know, say, my father came back. They will say, this is my mother. You know, in Igbo land, they, you know, you see they call some people name.
Yeah.
A small, okay, you're Igbo now.
Yeah.
You know, a small child. It's in there. Say, this one is my mother. You know, so in oil palm, it happens. So you now find people, they will come and buy seeds from NIFOR, Tenera, hybrid. Tenera is usually a product of Dura and Piscifera. When you cross the two of them, you have Tenera, hybrid. So when they plant NIFOR palm and the thing gives them Tenera, they will now collect our fruits, sprout it, and they will start selling to people as NIFOR seed or hybrid seed. If you plant that thing, you are going back to the parents where the thing is coming from. So you have a lot of Jura in their population. A lot of Jura in their population. Sometimes you just have sterile palms. By the third generation, you have sterile palms. So when you are dealing with hybrids, you need to always go to the source to go and buy your seed. Except you can establish your parent gardens where you have your mother palm, you have your father palm. I think you are the one that is doing the crops. Not that you going to buy seed from NIFOR. Okay. This thing I'm telling you now is such a complicated matter that even some professors were caught in it because they believe that you can just buy seed from NIFOR and then start producing your own seed. You understand what I'm saying? So, in the area of NIFOR's effect on the industry, right from the time of our research in the 1920s, at that beginning time, before we were able to isolate Piscifera, we were busy crossing Jura, and producing Jura, crossing Jura, and producing Jura, until we were able to isolate Piscifera. And we isolated Piscifera because we found Tenera in the wild. So when we retrieved that Tenera from the wild, we segregated it and got Piscifera. So it's that Piscifera that we purified and then planted it out. That is where we get pollen from to now fertilize the female flowers from Jura that we now use for seed production. That was when we had our breakthrough with our commercial planting material that today is in the market as Tenera. So, in terms of impact, I will tell you that almost anywhere in Nigeria where the improved variety is planted, NIFOR has made an impact in such areas. Today we have over 500,000 hectares of area planted to improve variety. Most of that is coming from NIFOR. In the early days, before a lot of people thought they were too smart to come to NIFOR to buy materials, commercial planting material is only from NIFOR. So NIFOR is the only federal government agency that has a mandate to provide improved planting materials to the human value chain in Nigeria. Very great. You come to NIFOR today, it's here. The basic qualification to do this is a PhD. That is basic. If you don't have a PhD and they say you are a research officer, you know what they call you? Pupil. You are pupil. You are still learning. Nobody gives you a research assignment and turn away his eyes because you are assumed to be a student until you have a PhD. When you have a PhD, that is when you are considered a research officer. And usually that is achieved over 10 years after employment with a BSc degree. Ask it. Some people, 15, 20 years, depending on how long it took you to undergo your and acquire your PhD program, your PhD certificate. Yeah. So it's when you acquire that PhD certificate that will now be confident and then say, okay, go and undertake a study in this area and provide a proposal, we will fund it. Because you don't want people to go and waste the little resource that you have. Yes. So at the moment in NIFOR, you have over 134 research scientists cutting across breeding, agronomy, science, biotechnology, physiology, entomology, economics, extension, pathology. Virtually all the professional areas that you need to support the industry from every direction, so that no matter what problems you have, you will come here and find solution. And all these people are paid on a monthly basis by the government. So that the farmer, whether you are small, you are medium, you are large, you can find coverage by our research, development, and innovation.
All right. Thank you very much for that interesting piece. The next thing we wish to understand is that online now, there are a lot of names that have been flying around. We have the one they call the Malaysian dwarf. They have the one they call the super gene. They even have the one they call improved Dura. First, what are those things? Are they new species that we don't know about, or are they new improved varieties? And how do they compare with NIFOR improved Tenera?
Okay. Now, in the industry, like I said earlier, the only commercial variety that is in the global oil palm space is Tenera, that you call a variety. The other varieties are Jura and Piscifera, which are not commercial varieties. These are parents. Okay? Now, these parents, Jura and Piscifera, are only warehoused in seed producers' facility like you have in NIFOR. So NIFOR is a government agency that produces seeds. You have private companies, not in Nigeria, but outside Nigeria, that are also producing seeds that have a complement of scientists, like you also have in NIFOR. So you have companies like Pamelit. Pobe is a French company, but their farm is in Pobe, their factory is in Pobe. You have Camp Seed in Cameroon. You have ASD Costa Rica. You have Ghana Sumatra in Ghana. You have Univantage in Thailand. You have Sofinco. You have Sofindo. And then you now have, okay, when you go to Colombia, you also have some other companies there. They are all making seeds. And it's all Tenera that they make. So if you go to their facility, you will see different collections of Dura from different areas of the world. And then you now have also Piscifera fields, where they collect parents from time to time that they combine to meet some specific objectives. You talk about drought tolerance, you talk about short cell, you talk about high bunch number, you talk about high bond weight, you talk about high oil extraction ratio. You know, so these are different plant breeding objectives that these people use their collections to address. In Nigeria, the collection of parent trees are only found in NIFOR. There's no that place where you have parent trees. There's no that place. So if you find somebody producing seed, ask the person, please, can you take me to your field where you have your parent trees? Can you just please show me the certification you have, you know, for producing these certain seeds? They don't. And it's because of the existence of the gap in enforcement of government regulations. Some of these people, maybe they don't understand. If you are caught, a 5 years jail without option of fine. Yes, because you are producing those materials and destroying people's lives. There have been so-called farmers that committed suicide 4 years after they found that they planted the wrong seed. Committed suicide. Because some of these people, they use their pension and gratuity to set up those farms. And then, because of the temptation of buying things that are very cheap, they fall into the hands of these unscrupulous people. So in Malaysia, there's a company they call Etani, E-T-A-N-I. They produce seeds. Okay? So in their own environment, they saw some palms that were very unique, carrying 20 bunches, 25 bunches, you know. So they now took these palms and went to clone them. You know, in cloning, it's like photocopying the palm. Yes. They went to clone the palms to produce the series that they call sponge. So it's expected that when you clone a palm that carries 20, 25 bunches, you know, all the products on that palm will behave like the sauce. So they have two categories. One is the one that carries an average of about 40 bunches Eh? About 40 bunches weigh approximately 20 kg, 20 to 25 kg each. So they claim that they are able to get about 40 tons of bunches from that particular variety. They call it Clay 600. Then you now have another series of products that they call Super Gene. That one they claim can give you 60 tons of fresh food bunches per hectare per year. That one they call Super Gene. Now, the interesting thing about all this is that these ethnic products are not popular in Malaysia. It's only in Africa where they are directed their adverts that people are captivated. People are carried away. But what they don't understand is that the performance of any palm, the performance of any tree, is a combination of the gene and the environment. A palm cannot perform independent of its environment. In Malaysia, you can easily get an average rainfall of about 4,000 millimeters per year, well spread out throughout the months of the year. In Nigeria, you can get an average rainfall of about 3,400 millimeters of the year, only spread out within 6 months. The other 6 months are dry. So, if you bring a product from Malaysia into Nigeria, it will start behaving like the Nigerian products because of the environment. If you take a product from Nigeria, we have done that. Take a product from NIFOR here, take it to Malaysia. A product that was doing 15 tons, 18 tons FFP per hectare per year, on getting to Malaysia, it was doing 28, 30 tons FFP per hectare per year. And that is because in Malaysia, rain virtually falls or showers every day. Every day for about 10, 11 months of the year. The year that Malaysia will have up to 2 months of dry season, they will shout all over the world that they are finished. Because they know that their farms cannot do well without water. Yeah. You can imagine Malaysia conducting irrigation experiments because they are afraid that they are going to start having 2 months of dry spell. Compared to Nigeria, where we have over 6 months. It was 6 months before. Now the thing is, whoever thought that there will be a day when in August you will not have continuous rainfall. Yeah, even July, that you will not have continuous rainfall in July and in August. What do you have now? Yeah, you're having dry spell in July. You're having dry spell in August. And yet, we are not into oil palm irrigation. Everybody says it's too expensive, it's too expensive, it's too expensive. Whereas we are ready to import food from countries that are carrying out irrigation to produce their foods that we are buying for. You know? And that is because of the policies and operations of those economies. You know? So we are really not at a disadvantage with respect to the material that are available to us. But we are at a disadvantage with respect to the levels of investments that we put into food production. You know, there's still something in our psyche that we have built up over time, you know, that makes us believe that it's God that will intervene in our food production system. Not knowing that the power to create that intervention rests with us. Starting from innovative facilities like this. to develop the technology to improve our food system. It's not God. God has given us that power, and He's not bothered about it. Just like one man they showed, I think it's today I watched it. One house was burning. The guy was standing there and praying. Which is easier? To get water, put detergent in it, shake it, and pour it into the fire so I don't go. Or to wait for an angel to come and use fire extinguisher. Which is easier? They don't make fire extinguishers in heaven. They make it less. You know? So we still believe that we have to, get rainmakers. So in Malaysia, we have also some products. It's the same thing that happens with coconut. The coconut we have in Nigeria is superior to a lot of the coconut that people are buying from outside. Because we didn't plan that, I would have shown you some data about our coconuts that we have in NIFOR, over 9 varieties that we have in NIFOR. Like I told you before, you have coconuts that can give you 200 nuts per tree. 200 nuts per tree. 200 nuts per tree. At 200 nuts per tree times 200 trees per hectare is actually about 205, multiplied by an average of 500 per nut. That is 20 million naira per hectare. You are not processing, just pluck it, put it in the bag, and take it away. Only for oil palm, if you convert to palm oil, you can get about 7 to 8 million naira per hectare. Then with coconut, 20 million naira. All you need for coconut, just protect your land. Either you do trenching around or you're able to fence it or whichever. So that people cannot just come in, somebody coming in from the farm is thirsty. You just go there and do your bunch like this and then walk along and all that. No. Once you can protect your trees, you can realize this very easily. The trees are here. The trees are here. So it's the same thing with the oil palm. The dwarf oil palm. When you talk about dwarf, Malaysia doesn't have dwarf palms. Come to NIFOR, 5 years, they are still on the ground. Carrying bunches, it's still on the ground. You can use cutlass to cut it. What they are calling Malaysian dwarf, by 7 years, the thing is already above 5 feet. Our own palm, you can use cutlass to harvest up to year 10. When you talk about height increment, the normal one in palms that are coming from Asia is about 50-55 centimeters per year increase every year. They are increasing like that. Come to NIFOR here, you see 25 centimeters increment per year. Per year. There are palms here that were planted at the time I joined NIFOR 35 years ago. They are still less than 6 feet tall. Less than 6 feet. They are here at the fence of our barns. You still take cutlass. You see, when I tell you that Nigeria is a center of diversity, I know what I'm talking about. Almost any palm you want is in Nigeria here. So, but usually our people are so captivated by something that is coming from overseas. It's African, it's an African problem. It's an African problem. It's not only here. It's an African problem. And then coupled with the fact that a lot of the foreign estates that have investment in the oil palm industry in Nigeria, they have sister companies that are producing seeds. They have sister companies producing seeds. Presco, until recently, until was sold. Permanent was going to collaborate with Presco to have a parent field so that they can be producing seeds in Nigeria here. Wilma, they have a sister company that produces seeds. All because of the philosophy of keeping their money within a group. You have Dangote, transport is there, banking is there, insurance is there. To make sure that before money will leave Dangote group, it probably will take about 10 years old. That money revolves around the group. So it's the same thing that happen with some of these companies that are coming in. And some of them have started, bringing in these seeds, apart from the one they are using, selling to our farmers. And our farmers go there, they just nosedive. They just nosedive. Like somebody that attended the party one day, he was very hungry. So they took him to a buffet. He just saw plates of different food. He didn't know which one was which. Started collecting. There were some blackberries. He just threw them into his mouth. By the time he realized what he was swallowing, the man was already vomiting. Yeah, that's what happened to a typical African. So today, you will go into fields planted by Nigerians, using foreign materials, being vulnerable to the vagaries of our environment. There are places you go to, 500 hectares, almost as far as your eye can see, suffering from serious desiccation arising from drought. The materials were not bred for this particular environment.
Okay, let us still a follow-up question on this issue. Nigeria is the home of palm, and this is actually where I say that the history of palm started off. But when we compare our performance in the international market, it's slow. And even the most unfortunate thing, Nigeria is importing palm oil. One, why is it so? Secondly, what can we do to change the narrative?
Yeah, it's production. The reason why there is a deficit is that when the Malaysian government took interest in the oil palm, they set out a annual target of 100,000 hectares yearly. Yes. So in some years, they will succeed in cultivating about 110. In some years, 105. But they made sure that they didn't fall below 100. They were consistent until about 4 million hectares were planted. Yes, with improved varieties. Indonesia picked up from the same vein. Planted until today that they have over 7 million hectares. So if an Indonesia has over 15 million hectares, because their annual production into the world market is about 43 million tons of palm oil. Malaysia has over 19 million tons of palm oil. Nigeria, we don't have up to 1 million tons. It's not magic. It's cultivation. If you look at the philosophy of our investment in Nigeria, I can speak of Nigeria, not much of Africa. We want investments with very quick return. If possible. There's only, okay, did you grow up to meet something they call Kalo?
Okay.
Yes, Kalo. Put your coin. You put your coin there, press a number, and then you take your pocket and then pack the other coins. Yeah. So I can investment that we do. That kind of investment that we do. Wilma came into the West African zone with over $1 billion. For more than 7 years, they were investing without returns. They were investing without returns. Even till date, they are still investing. So by the time they stabilize for after about 8, 9, 10 years, you not think that is magic. A typical Nigerian will not do that. He would rather not go to Wima and start, troubling them to enter the stock exchange so they can go there and buy shares. Not to go and set up their own company and invest in the same vein. No. Because we are not prepared for such things. Everybody is seeing the performance of Okumu stock today. You are seeing the performance of Presco stock in the stock exchange.
and everybody want to go there and buy shares. They didn't just start yesterday. You know, people did this paid work, and it was very painful. Years after, those people are reaping very heavy gains, like this Belgian did in Bresco, that has sold off his shares now and gone back to his country. Yeah. It's investment. Creating the right environment for investment. There was a leak in our production some time ago when government floated over 200 billion naira for the oil palm berry rehabilitation at 9% interest rate. A lot of the old estates took loan for expansion. Some new companies entered into the sector for greenfield. Banks were giving out money with a 4-year moratorium. You know? But today, that is not consistent. It's not consistent. It just happened within a period of time and then it died. But if you go to these companies that are planting very large acreage, they have very, very consistent policies. They are very, very consistent policies that will run for 10 years, 20 years, with very slight modification to improve the performance of that policy. Recently, India floated $1.4 billion to achieve 1 million hectares by 2029. And they are doing it consistently. They have started. If they plant 1 million hectares now, you know, put money, plant another 1 million hectares. By the time they reach 5 million hectares, they will be exporting oil to African countries. Because we don't have the same group projection. They will plant today, next 4 5 years. After that, you know, like meanwhile your population is shooting up. The rate of your oil palm growth is lower than your population growth. What are you going to have? Deficit. Because the consumption of the palm oil is population dependent. Everybody you give birth to in Nigeria today eat palm oil one way or the other. It's either you are using it as soap, you are using it from your candies, you are using it from your milk. You know they use it to make milk? Field milk. Yeah. They use refined bleach and deodorized palm oil to make field milk. If you use Maggi, you are eating palm oil. You know? So the soup pot that you will cook when you have 2 people in your house is not the same that you cook when you have 6. Exactly. So your population is increasing, the consumption is increasing. So if your production is lower than your rate of population increase, you will run into deficit that we have done. We don't need to deficit. We are managing in the international markets in our early days because the production from the wild was enough to feed the local population and export. But after the Civil War, the production areas were badly decimated. That is Southeast. You know, that's where we ran into this crisis. And we never recovered from it. Because there is no systematic growth plan that can last up to 10 years, up to 20 years. A lot of government get discouraged when they initiate a policy and 2-3 years they can't see any way through the policy. They just get discouraged and just leave it. Oil palm is not like that. When you set up the policy in the oil palm sector, you have to be ready to give it at least about 10 years to see realization. You know, you see the recent policy of this president Bola Ahmed Tinubu, JCFR, that Nigerians should plant 100 million oil palm trees. That amounts to about 650,000 hectares. If you already have the land, you have the money to start today, that won't take you less than 7 or 8 years to realize. But if you are here to plan the land, you are here to go and organize the money that you will need at least about 10 years. 10 years at an average of about maybe 70,000, 80,000 hectares. Not an easy task. You know, to get that thing realized. But you need a structure that will keep that thing going, even at the expiration of the administration that started it. That is when we can have clear results in the industry. Otherwise, you are going to have all these, cherry picking activities that we are currently doing in the industry, and then a few companies doing expansion that does not give significant results in the overall first employer pool of the country Nigeria.
Okay. If you come online, there is a topic that is very hot now, and people have been talking about GMO. One, does this have this GMO they have been talking about, does it come into play in the oil palm? And if yes, what does it really mean?
Well, GMO is genetically modified organisms. And that happens when there is a desire for quick fixes to improve food production. For instance, in our environment, we have a number of limitations. We have limitations with rainfall. We have limitations with soil structure. We have limitations with pests. We have limitations with diseases. So one of the quickest way you can generate a crop that can cope with all these limitations and still perform very well is through genetic modification. So in itself is not bad, but it is how it is applied that determines whether or not it is socially acceptable. Now, complete modification of the oil palm has not started yet. We have cases of cloning, which is not genetically modified the palm. It's still your palm, but with cloning, you are just photocopying the palm. Yes. In GMO, there's a restructuring of the DNA profile. So at a point, and that investment takes a lot. It takes quite a lot to get it. So in Africa today, or in other developing countries of the world, or tropical areas of the world where oil palm is being produced, complete modification of the palm is not priority yet at all. We still have oil palm varieties that can do very well in our changing environment. If you come here today, for instance, you come to NIFOR today, you go into our seed garden, you will see palms that will be in the female circle. A palm needs to be in the female circle to carry notches. And usually, when you don't have sufficient water and not rainfall, some of the palms will be going into male circle because of the stress. They go into the male circle. So when they are in the male circle, they don't carry notches. Now, if you go into our pool, you have palms that are consistently in the female circle, whether or not there is water. Whether or not there is water, they are consistently in the female circle. So those palms, we call them drought tolerance palms. So in our product portfolio, we have isolated those palms out. Their bunch number is high, their bunch weight is high, you know, whether or not there is a rainfall. So those are the palms that we isolated. We call the extension work seed 2, EWS2, as part of NIFOR products. And then there's another drought tolerant type that is green when it's not ripe and bright orange when it is ripe. We call it varieties. It's still Elias vidiensis. Varieties. You know, that varieties is also very drought tolerant. Very drought tolerant. So we have also isolated it as our different products. The EWS1 contains everything, you know, including the varieties. Because if you plant our EWS1, you will still see palms that are green when they are not ripe and bright orange when they are ripe. It's still in the pool, you know. But our EWS2, we have isolated it. It's just like you have people that are fair, people that are black, and then at the time, you know, so people being mixed together. Fair people stand here, black people stand here. So you want to buy somebody that is fair, just come here. You can get them on this line. You want to buy somebody that is dark in complexion, just come here. That's exactly what we have now. You know, and these ones that we have isolated, EWS2 and EWSV, are very powerful products. They are very powerful products because they are not products that are artificially constructed. Yeah. They are from our parent trees here. Parent trees that on their own, without fertilizer, they carry 400 kilograms of bunches per year. 400 kilograms of bunches per year. So that parent tree alone, if you multiply it by 143 trees in 1 hectare, that gives you 57 tons. So by the time you use that parent to produce an offspring, which is our tenera, it will perform better than the parent. Because that is one beautiful thing about hybridization. You know, you have what they call genetic gain. You know, the offspring is usually better than the parent. By the time you take seed from the offspring to go and plant, it will perform worse than the parent. So that's why we advise you, don't plant hybrid. Don't take seed from our tenera, you go and start sprouting it for people that want to go and plant. No, you don't do that. You don't do that. If you want to go into seed production, go into seed production properly. Go and get pure mother line. Go and get pure father line. Usually our mother line is the Jura line, and the father line is the Bicefera line. Pure. So combine them to get the hybrid.
Okay. You know, the value chains in the palm sector is very large. You can go into plantation, you can go into palm oil, palm kernel, there are so many. If a young investor were to approach you with a 5 million naira, that is all he has, which of the value chains would you tell him to? Will you advise that he goes into that will be profitable in the long run?
Yeah. Even if it's 2 hectares, let him go and plant 2 hectares. Yes. You should plant the oil palm and then use this interrow. Because whenever you plant out a field of oil palm, you have literally used about 60% of the available land. So the other 40%, you can use it for some crops that also have gain on a regular basis. You can do pepper, right? And you can do the regular, long pepper. You can do fresh pepper. You can do bell pepper. You can do groundnuts, depending on your area. You can do beans. You raise these things until your palms reach gestation. Where you can start harvesting your bunches. Because when you start harvesting your bunches, It's only alarms that will be getting. Yeah. Once you start, and the most beautiful thing is that it gives you money every 2 weeks throughout the year. Therefore, materials will give you money from January to October. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Until the palms are between 20 and 25 years old. Before the production period will stop around July. Until then, it gives you money 2 weeks between January and October. So your waiting period is just that November, December, January. By the next February, March, you start collecting money again. But by the time your palms are about 20, 25 years old, the peak will shift backwards and start by December and then run till July of every year. The harvesting rate is 2 weeks.
Great. Finally, we know that youths have been running into technology, tech, and shifting away from agriculture. How do you think, or what approach to be used to use oil palm to bring them back to agriculture?
Yes. You see, the dynamism in the tech industry is so high that you discover something in tech today, by next week it's outdated. You understand what I'm saying? When you're in the tech industry, you need to be on your toes. You need to be on your toes. That's 24 hours. You need to be on your toes. Because as you are working on an app, you are working on a product, another person is working from different direction, another person is working. You release your own, the person will release his own next week. Your own is outdated. Your customers, they will just shift to the new products. That may say be, we also suffer the same thing when a superior product enters the market. Since we were born, is there any other superior product apart from palm oil? And in the oils and fats, in the oils and fats economy, is there any other oil that has come out? And they said the palm oil that was used yesterday is no longer relevant. Is the one that Kelechi is making today. Everybody come here and come and drink Kelechi palm oil. Palm oil remains palm oil. Palm oil remains palm oil. In fact, the game gets better with time. So even if you are in tech or any other areas of investment you find yourself, still invest in food production. Still invest in food production. Yam is yam. Gari is gari.
Yes.
So still invest in food production.
Right. A question just popped into my head now, and I know that I've gotten it a lot online, and I want to hear your take on it. Many investors, most especially Nigerians and diaspora, want to set up something like this, or people in the civil service that want to set up palm plantations to retire on it. But many of them have tried and failed. What are the pitfalls they should be looking out for to ensure that when you put in your money, you're not throwing it away, and it will be profitable when you want to make use of it?
Yes. The planting materials. The planting materials and the planting location. Okay? Now, somebody from Niger State, for instance, just got home one day and saw palms, scattered around his village or around his town and all that. And so they just decided that he want to put up a plantation in Bida, for instance. You will plant it. They will grow, but they will be looking at you. Because most of the times in the year, they are in the male cycle. They just be looking at you. So if you don't choose your location properly, you can get discouraged with investment. And then the planting is a planting material. Something that is going to stay with you for 40 years, 60 years. You want to go and buy something very cheap to start it. If like marrying the devil. And the pastor said, the dead to you, but so the person is in trouble. In a very serious trouble.
All right. So
That's what happened. Yeah, that's what happened with the number of this investment. You know, you don't make your choices properly, and then you don't go and start up something, or you are starting up a business like that in Nigeria. You are not around. Giving money for somebody to just improve his life.
Yes.
Yes. You are not there. The day the person will take two laborers to the village, say, come and see them there and say, hey, here, that you have to send money, man. But they want to kill me inside the bush. The day you will come, you will wonder whether that is your farm or that is another person's farm. Maybe your own is at the front.
So what is your final advice to Nigerians in this pipe farm sector?
Yeah.
What is your final advice?
The advice is that invest properly. Watch over your investment. Don't leave any of your investment. You don't even have to be right back. There's no investment you should leave completely to a manager and you are not visiting. You know, those are the cares that you really need to take. You know, it's a wonderful crop, very, very profitable. There are not many cash crops that can compete with it. You know, in terms of the input and then the output. Very profitable. And young people can go in very conveniently. Because you come to look at it, how many jobs can you really do? Because you know that, you know, if you, there are no restrictions in the size of farm that you plant in oil palm. It can be 1 hectare. It can even be 1 acre. It can be 2 hectares. It can be 3 hectares. You know, the money that you start making at maturity, a professor in the university cannot earn that in 3, 4, 5 years. You know, and then you now also talk about investment in very volatile areas of the economy. Today there is a boom. Tomorrow there is a heavy depression. You know, you find out the oil palm, the risk factor is very, very low. Very, very low. You know, except for issues like banditry and all that. Oil palm is literally risk-free. Because once you can agree with your host communities on what you are doing, you can go ahead and do what you need to do. Literally risk-free. If they put fire in oil palm farm, by the time it's coming up after the next rain, the thing is looking stronger and looking more vigorous. So you really cannot kill it. You know? So it's a very beautiful investment and it's something that you can do and even hand over to your children. They can take it as an inheritance. Just like somebody is inheriting a house. In fact, it's even better than inheriting a house because it guarantees your cash flow. Unlike a house that you need to go and repair and do all sorts of things. You don't do those maintenance activities in the oil palm. You know, just clear the weed, apply your fertilizer, and harvest. That's all. So for the young people, it's something that they should seriously consider. In your villages, there are a lot of villages with so much land. The boys are not around. They are busy picking tomatoes in another person's farm in Italy. They are not at home. You know? So if they can invest some of that money, some are actually doing it. There's a young man that called me from Spain. He said the reason he called is that he saw our video on seed production. So when he saw the processes that we go through to come out with our germinated seed, he knew that no, they can't sell this seed for 200 naira. Because somebody else has given him 200 naira per seed before. You know? So he started looking for our contact address. Because my own personal number is still online on our website.
Really?
Yes. So he called. I said, please. He would like to come directly by himself. I told him, no, you don't have to come. You can pay through Remita where you are in Spain. You know, because Remita has several payment channels. You can pay through Remita. And then send somebody here to come and pick up. The person will not stop by the roadside. But if you give them cash, they can stop at the roadside, buy nonsense, and go and plant in your farm. I tell you that is life. You know, so you come, you pay directly where you are, and then send somebody to pick up. They will not be able to cheat you. If they give you the GPS coordinates of where they are planting it, you can view it through satellites. You know, go and buy from Earth observation systems, for instance. They are online. Pay a little money. They give you access. You can view your farm in the field and know whether or not it is planted, and know how many parts that you have in that field. You can count it. So you don't have to come. You know? So that is what it is. It's an investment that young people can go in and they will thrive very well. And indeed, we need the young people to participate, because a future that depends on retired people, old people, and all that is not the future.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time. We really appreciate, and we believe that our viewers have learned a thing or two about setting up a palm plantation and the reasons why they need to partner with NIFOR to ensure that they do not just blow their money in a bid to make more money. So thank you very much for your time.